So welcome to Hey Sis, Let's Chat, where we're chatting with Jocelyn today, and we are so excited to just dive into some really cool, some really cool stuff. Okay, all right. So let's talk to Jocelyn. So Jocelyn, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I'm a nutritionist and a registered dietitian, and I have been for almost 20 years. And I love helping people to make sense of this crazy world of food. Because there is just so much misinformation out there. There are so many myths about nutrition, and everybody thinks they need to stop eating this and stop eating that. Right. And I just want to flip the script and help people know what to eat instead of what not to eat.
Right. Yeah. So now there's this big conversation about folate. So can you tell us what folate or folic acid, whatever word we're supposed to use. Right. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, it seems confusing because there's two different names for it, but you can just think of it as like generic and the brand name, right? So folate is the generic and folic acid is the brand name. Okay. So folic acid, we mostly make in a lab. Folate comes straight from food. And we really want to focus on getting what we can out of our food. And then for specific populations, we need to throw a little something on it. And so we do the folic acid on top of that.
So it's better to get our folate naturally.
That's right.
What we gravitate towards.
That's right. Okay. So you want to have your foods be your source of folate and really pack in the good foods so that you get enough folate. And then for specific populations like pregnant women, breastfeeding women, you need extra. And so then we put the folic acid in supplement form on top of the food.
Oh, because it's not enough?
It's not enough.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So when you're pregnant, you're trying to create this beautiful spinal cord of the baby, right? We want everything to be as healthy as possible. We want our babies looking beautiful, functioning well. So that can only happen if you have enough folic acid. Otherwise, that whole spinal column doesn't form correctly, and that baby will have what's called spina bifida. So in order to make sure that the baby has a really healthy spinal column, you got to have that mom with enough folic acid, which means she has to take it in the prenatal. She can't just rely on her good foods to get the folate. She also has to take the folic acid in a pill.
Okay, so question on that note. So if somebody's planning on becoming pregnant, should they begin taking folic acid supplements along with just eating natural folate in their foods? Or is that something that like you can just wait until you know that you're pregnant and start taking it with like prenatal vitamins?
So the rule of thumb, that's a great question. The rule of thumb is the best time for folic acid is when you think that you are going to start trying for pregnancy. And so you don't want to wait until you're pregnant and start your folic acid if you can help it. Now, of course, some of us, it's a surprise. We don't know, right?
Like you should have been taking your pills.
Right. But as long as, like, if you're trying for pregnancy, start that folic acid right away and keep eating those folate-rich foods because both things will really help.
Now, what are those folate-rich foods?
I know, it seems like a mystery,
I'm like, okay, what do I need to start eating right now?
So you want to just keep saying to yourself, greens and beans, greens and beans.
Greens and beans.
So all the dark leafy greens, plus all of our beans, like our bonzo beans and lentils and our black-eyed peas. And then oranges. People forget, oranges are a great source of folic acid. So oranges and orange juice.
I mean, you think of vitamin C,
right? Right, but folate too.
So with orange juice, is it the pulp-free orange juice or is it all the pulp?
Well, I don't want to disappoint you.
Oh no!
Oh no!
No! I'm not ready.
Not the pulp.
The more of that orange that you can get in there and just be like, I'm getting my folate, the more of that pulp you can get in there, the better. But if you don't have the pulp, it's okay because it's still in the juice. Okay? So.
I like the pulp. That's me. I'm like, pulp all day. But, thank you.
Yeah.
See, I knew it.
Makes me feel like I swallowed hair.
You're terrible. Oh my gosh. Okay. So you said it's best to take it when you're pregnant. And so folate acid is something that you can take at any time during your life, right?
Yes. And you should take folic acid through pregnancy, through breastfeeding. It's really important because baby, remember, is still growing even outside of us.
Yeah.
You know, they are still developing all of their organs. They're developing their brain, and folic acid is important for the brain too. So you want to keep taking it through pregnancy and breastfeeding. But for the rest of us, we need it, but we can get it mostly from our food unless we have certain medications on board. Like there's a medication called methotrexate, and people who are on that, when oftentimes they are dealing with cancer, they'll be on methotrexate. They need extra folic acid. They can't just rely on the foods. They need to take the pill. You know, a couple other medications like Dilantin. You're on that, you got to take your folic acid.
Right.
So we all need it, but most of us could just get it from our greens and our beans and our oranges, except for pregnancy, breastfeeding, and if you're taking certain medications.
Got you. Okay. Question. So, how could somebody find out whether or not they are deficient in folic acid?
That's a great question, because most of the time we're like, I hope I'm okay.
Right.
Hope is not going to do it.
That
is not gonna
you
do
can't
it.
check your blood all the time.
Yeah. So you do need to go, and like I say, go to the vampires, right? Get that blood.
Vampires.
I have not called them that, but I will today.
Go to the vampires, get that blood draw, and then you just tell your doctor, I want a folic acid blood test. And it's very simple. It's very common. It's just that you have to ask for it because it's not going to be a part of your regular checkup. So you have to actually go to your doctor and say, can you please make sure to check my folic acid blood level?
So anybody can do that.
Anybody
you don't
can
have
do
to
that.
be pregnant.
Anybody.
Okay, nice.
And it's actually really important for Black folks because we have a higher cardiovascular risk. And folic acid plays a huge role in our heart health.
Yes.
So we want to make sure we're not just on a hope and a prayer with our folic acid. We want to know what our levels are. Because if it's low, then our heart risk is high.
Right.
But if we have it right where it needs to be, that heart risk is very low.
Yeah.
So it's good for us to check.
We've been talking about folic acid. So how much is it like a requirement for us to have a day?
So most of us need about 400 micrograms. People think it's milligrams, it's micrograms, a tiny little amount. But when we're pregnant and breastfeeding, it goes up to 1,000. And again, those people who are on those medications I was talking about, you want to have that upper range. So sometimes they even go up to 1 milligram. But for most of us, it's 400 to 1,000 micrograms.
And that's safe. Wow.
Yeah.
If you go above that, is there anything that happens to you?
That's a good question. So if you have too much folic acid, you can actually hide a B12 deficiency. And you don't want to hide a B12 deficiency because then you'll be like, how come I can't feel my fingers? How come I can't feel my toes? And a B12 deficiency is irreversible. So you don't want to go so high on the folic acid that you hide that B12 deficiency. So 400 to 1,000 is just right.
Oh, wow.
So you can't come back from a B12.
It's very challenging to come back from what we call pernicious anemia or a megaloblastic anemia, where it's all the way foregone B12 deficiency. So we're trying to keep that from happening. And the best way to do that is have just the right amount of folic acid, keep eating your foods that are animal foods, or take a B12 supplement if you're vegetarian or vegan.
And get checked.
And get checked. That's right. Get that blood level checked.
Yes.
Go to the
checked.
vampire.
The more you know.
The more you know. The more you know.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
And so another question that I have is, how would a folic acid deficiency present itself? Like, can you tell by like lines in your fingers or like fatigue?
So I'm going to tell you, but you all are going to be like, oh my God, I have that, right? Because
I already think I do. I'm like, girl, people told me. I'm like, I don't eat greens and beans. I'm already like, oh, okay.
So this does not mean if you have one of these that you are folic acid deficient. But again, test, don't guess, right? So get the blood test done, figure out where you are. So a lot of people experience a loss of concentration. People will experience sometimes more cramping. People will experience a little bit of headaches upsurging more than you usually have headaches.
Okay.
And it's all right.
Okay.
It's all right. And the most telltale is a swollen tongue.
How do you know if your tongue is swollen?
You would feel it. You would feel your tongue feeling larger in your mouth. I mean, so much so it's hard to talk. No, like big and fat.
That happens in my dreams. So does that mean I'm like,
Girl, you better
like
in your
in my dreams?
In your dream, go to the doctor.
I'm gonna get the
No.
I have to. I'm going to tell myself subconsciously, like, you need to go to the doctor. So, what are some culturally appropriate, I guess, for the culture foods that we can incorporate into our diet?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we said originally greens and beans, and you know that, in our culture, we are all about the greens.
Yes.
So dandelion greens, turnip greens, mustard greens, collard greens, anything dark green and leafy is going to be high in folic acid. So if you have that grandmother or that auntie that likes to put multiple kinds of greens into a pot and let it simmer, you're having a whole lot of folic acid there. Then you go into your things like your black-eyed peas, as well as, you can throw in some okra in there too, and you'll get some folic acid. So those are some good foods to put on board to make sure you're getting enough folic acid. But remember, you're getting folate through the food, right? And then folic acid through the pill.
And I have a question.
Go ahead. Yes.
So I don't know if there are people like me in this world. I have a texture, so I'm not really into beans. So how do I get that folate without necessarily eating beans? You
got to make best friends with oranges.
Got it.
Oranges and orange juice.
Right?
And then the greens, if you'll do the greens, those don't have to be slimy. They don't have to be the same texture as beans. So maybe greens and oranges for you.
Okay.
Yeah, good question. Yeah.
Nice. Okay. So Jocelyn, I know that for our Women of Wellness program, you do cooking chats with us where you give us cooking demos and
Love the cooking chat.
Yes, we love you, girl.
Yes, we do. And our community loves you too.
Yes.
They're like, so Jocelyn.
She is the glue. She is truly the glue. But yes, so do you have any folic acid heavy recipes that are a hit with families and just with people who maybe are trying to incorporate more greens and beans and maybe some oranges into their
Yes, I do. I will definitely hit you with my collard green recipe and also my black-eyed pea recipe.
Ooh,
Thank you.
Full of folic acid.
below. Swipe up.
Let's get 10,000 likes, guys.
Oh my goodness.
Well, so thank you so much for
It is
joining
my
us today.
pleasure.
This was amazing. My mind is blown, like always. So we just want to thank you. And did you guys want to say?
I'm on my way to get some oranges now.
Nice.
Okay, I'm following you to get those oranges
There we
and some
go.
greens and beans.
Yes. I will not be drinking orange juice at the pub. I can't do it. It's not for me. But I can do the greens and the beans. So thank you, Jocelyn.
My pleasure. Thank you all.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for watching thus far, and we hope that you continue to tune in to the rest of our videos. In order to let us know what you like, please like, comment, subscribe, and check out the content in the description box. It's going to be full of recipes, information about roots and all of our different social media outlets, and also ways that you can let us know what you would like to see in the future. We hope to see you again.